how the Noble Eightfold Path works, and why you're already on it. You don't walk the path to get somewhere. That sounds wrong. Every path goes somewhere. Every road has a destination. You start at the beginning, you follow the steps, you arrive at the end. But the Buddha taught something that 2,500 years of misunderstanding has almost buried. You have heard of the Noble Eightfold Path. Right view, right speech, right action. The terms appear in every introduction to Buddhism ever written. 8 steps, 8 rungs on a ladder. Learn the first, move to the second, climb to the third, and at the top, liberation. Except the Buddha never described a ladder. He never described steps. And the way these 8 factors actually work together is so different from what most people assume, that once you see it, you cannot unsee it. Here's what I mean. In the Mahācattārīsaka Sutta, MN 117, the Buddha describes what happens inside each factor of the path. Take any one of them, say right speech. When right speech is operating, 3 other factors are simultaneously active alongside it. Right view, discerning what speech is skillful and what is not. Right effort, generating the energy to abandon wrong speech and enter right speech. Right mindfulness, keeping that intention alive, remembering what needs to be done. The text says these 3 qualities, run and circle around right speech. And this is not unique to speech. The formula repeats for every single factor. Right view, right effort, and right mindfulness run and circle around each one. Every factor contains other factors. The whole path is present inside each part. That is not a staircase. That is something else entirely. Something we will spend the next 45 minutes understanding. And by the end, you will not only know what the Noble Eightfold Path is, you will recognize that you have already been walking it. But first, the word noble. Why did the Buddha call it the Noble Eightfold Path? The Pali word is Arya, and it cuts both ways. It is noble because those who have fully developed all 8 factors, who have crossed to what the texts call the further shore, this is their path. You are following in their footsteps. But it is also noble because walking it is what makes a person noble. Not birth, not status, not belief, practice. The path belongs to those who have crossed, and crossing it is what makes you worthy of crossing. Now, one thing I want to be honest about from the beginning. You will sometimes hear that the path is liberation, that walking the path and reaching the goal are the same thing. That is a modern interpretation, and it is not quite what the canon says. The 4th Noble Truth describes the path as dukkha, nirodha, gamin, patipada, the way leading to the cessation of suffering. Directional. The path is fabricated. Nibbana is unfabricated. They are not identical. But here's what is also true, and this is the honest framing the texts support. Each factor, as it develops, reduces suffering and increases freedom right now, not later, not after you complete all 8. Now, the path progressively is the liberation it leads to. You are not waiting for the destination. You are already experiencing what the destination is made of. That is the frame for everything that follows. Not a staircase, not a checklist, a living system, where every part strengthens every other part, and every honest step already contains what you are walking toward. The Buddha organized these 8 factors into 3 divisions. This is not a modern invention. It comes directly from the Kulavadala Sutta, MN 44, where the Arahant nun, Dhammadinna, with the Buddha's explicit approval, explains the structure. Right view and right resolve belong to the division of wisdom, panya. Right speech, right action, and right livelihood belong to the division of ethics, sila. Right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration belong to the division of meditation, samadhi. 3 divisions, 8 factors, 1 path. And here is where the first surprise lives. The Buddha listed right view first. But the training does not begin with wisdom. It begins with ethics. The sequence of the list is not the sequence of the training. Right view frames everything, but it also completes everything. A preliminary form of right view starts the journey. The full transcendent right view arrives at the end, as the culmination of everything you have practiced. We begin where the Buddha began, with wisdom, not because you must understand everything before you act, but because without some understanding of why the path exists and where it points, every step is blind. Division 1. Wisdom. Right view, samadhi. Right view is the most misunderstood factor of the path. People hear right view and think the correct opinion, the right belief system, a set of doctrines you accept, and then you are done. You have right view. Check the box. Move to step 2. The Buddha taught something far more interesting. In the Avijja Sutta, SN 45:1, the Buddha traces how the path begins. The wrong path starts with ignorance and cascades. Ignorance leads to lack of shame, which leads to wrong view, wrong resolve, wrong speech, wrong action, wrong livelihood, wrong effort, wrong mindfulness, wrong concentration. A domino sequence of compounding error. The right path begins with its opposite, not enlightenment, that comes at the end. It begins with vijja, clear knowing. And in practical terms, clear knowing starts with something even simpler: honesty. The willingness to look at your experience and not look away. The Maghavibhanga Sutta, SN 45:8, defines right view with surgical precision. Knowledge of suffering, knowledge of the origin of suffering, knowledge of the cessation of suffering, knowledge of the path leading to the cessation of suffering, the 4 noble truths. That is right view in its essence. But, and this is where the teaching breathes, right view does not arrive all at once. The Venerable Thanissaro Bhikkhu, drawing on the canon and the Thai forest tradition, distinguishes 3 levels. The first is mundane right view. This is the entry point. It is the conviction that actions matter, that what you do has consequences, that generosity and ethical conduct are not naive. They produce real results. You do not need to understand dependent origination to hold this view. You do not need to meditate for 10 years. You simply need to take seriously the idea that how you act shapes what you experience. This is where most people begin, and it is a real beginning. The second level is transcendent right view. This is the direct understanding of the 4 noble truths, not as concepts you have read about, but as something you see in your own experience. This is the right view that arises at stream entry, when the path factors converge and the practitioner glimpses the unconditioned for the first time. The third level is final right view, the perception of all fabrications as inconstant, stressful, not self. Right view turning on itself. The tool examining the hand that holds it. This is the territory of the arahant, and the texts are clear. At this point, even right view is released. Now, you might hear those 3 levels and feel overwhelmed. Start at mundane, arrive at transcendent. It sounds like another staircase, but Thanissaro offers a reframe that changes everything. He describes right view as a series of working hypotheses, not certainties, not beliefs you must hold with white-knuckled conviction before you take a single step. Working hypotheses, provisional understandings that guide your practice and are tested by your practice. You do not need to believe everything before you begin. You begin, and right view sharpens as you go. Think about what that means. The Buddha is not asking you to accept a doctrine on faith. He is asking you to take the idea that actions have consequences, hold it lightly but seriously, and then watch what happens when you live as though it is true. The hypothesis generates the evidence. The evidence refines the hypothesis. Right view is not the entrance exam. It is the ongoing experiment. One more thing about right view, and this is a tension the canon holds honestly. The Mahācattārīsaka Sutta, MN 117, calls right view the forerunner. For each of the first 5 path factors, the Buddha repeats a formula. Of those, right view is the forerunner. It discerns wrong from right. It sets the direction. Without right view, the other factors are operating in the dark. And yet, the Buddha also said that of all the factors, right concentration is the heart of the path, and the others are its supports. Right view leads. Right concentration is where everything converges. These are not contradictions. Right view is the compass. Right concentration is the destination the compass points to. You need both, and neither works alone. But we are getting ahead of ourselves. That convergence happens in Division 3. For now, hold this. Right view is not a belief. It is a lens, one that begins blurry and sharpens with every honest act, every moment of attention, every willingness to see what is actually happening rather than what you wish were happening. The path does not begin with enlightenment. It begins with honesty. Right resolve, sammasankappa. If right view is the lens, right resolve is the direction you turn that lens. The Maghavibhanga Sutta, SN 45-8, defines it as 3 intentions: resolve for renunciation, nekkhamma; resolve for non-ill will, abhyapada; resolve for harmlessness, avihimsa. 3 intentions. And the first one, renunciation, is the one that makes modern listeners uncomfortable. Renunciation sounds like deprivation, like giving things up, like the opposite of a good life. And if that is what it meant, you would be right to resist it. Why would anyone voluntarily choose less? But as Thanissaro puts it, renunciation is not sacrifice. It is a trade. He uses the image of trading candy for gold. An intelligent sacrifice is one in which you gain a greater happiness by releasing a lesser one. The same way you would hand over a bag of candy if someone offered you a pound of gold in exchange. The candy is real. The pleasure is real. But the gold is more real. And once you have tasted the gold, the candy is not a loss. This matters because modern psychology, and much of modern culture, presents only 2 options: indulge your desires healthily or repress them unhealthily. Those are your choices: healthy expression or pathological suppression. The Buddha saw a third alternative that neither indulges nor represses, not driven by fear of pleasure, not driven by fear of restraint. A skillful approach that steps outside the binary entirely. And here's the key. This third alternative is not theoretical. It depends on something concrete. Right, concentration, the jhanas, the meditative absorptions we will explore in Division 3, provides a pleasure that is not dependent on sensory input, a rapture and ease born of seclusion, of stillness, of a mind gathered and whole. When you have access to that, the trade is not abstract. You are not giving up candy on faith. You are giving it up because you are holding gold in your hand. Resolve for non-ill will and resolve for harmlessness complete the triad. Together, they orient the mind toward release rather than acquisition, toward goodwill rather than resentment, toward care rather than damage. But notice, these are not commandments. They are resolves, intentions you set and return to. The Buddha did not say, you must never feel ill will. He said, resolve toward non-ill will. Aim there. When you miss, and you will miss, aim again. The resolve is not the achievement. The resolve is the orientation that makes the achievement possible. Right view and right resolve together form the wisdom division of the path. One sees clearly, the other chooses wisely, and together they do something that wisdom alone cannot do. They prepare you to act. Because wisdom without action is incomplete. Seeing clearly and choosing well are not enough if your hands, your voice, your daily life remain unchanged. The Buddha knew this, and so the path moves, from the mind's understanding to the body's conduct, from how you see to how you live. Division 2, Ethics. There is something the Buddha understood about human beings that most spiritual teachers miss. You can have perfect understanding and still cause harm. You can see clearly and still speak carelessly. You can resolve toward goodness and still act from habit. Wisdom without conduct is a beautiful idea that never touches the ground. The ethics division of the path is where the path touches the ground. 3 factors live here: right speech, right action, right livelihood. And if you are listening to this at 60, 65, 70 years old, these are not abstract principles. These are the factors you use every single day, in conversations with your spouse, in how you respond when a friend says something you disagree with, in what you do with your time now that the career that defined you for 40 years is gone. This is the most practical division of the path, and the Buddha made it the most specific. Right speech, samavaka, the Maghavibhanga Sutta, SN 45:8, defines right speech as abstaining from 4 things: lying, divisive speech, harsh speech, and idle chatter. 4 negatives, 4 things you stop doing. But the Buddha did not leave it there. In the Abhayarajakumara Sutta, MN 58, he revealed something far more sophisticated, a decision matrix for speech that is, as far as I know, unmatched in any ethical tradition. Prince Abhaya asked the Buddha a question designed to trap him. The Buddha responded not by evading, but by laying out the criteria he uses every time he speaks. 3 axes. First, is it true or untrue? Second, is it beneficial or not beneficial? Third, is it pleasing or unpleasing to the listener? These 3 axes create 6 possible combinations, and the Buddha's answers are precise. If something is true, beneficial, and pleasing, speak it with a sense of right timing. If something is true, beneficial, but unpleasing to hear, speak it with a sense of right timing. If something is true but not beneficial, do not speak it, even if it is true. And if something is untrue, do not speak it under any circumstances, regardless of whether it would be beneficial or pleasing. Notice the architecture. Truth is non-negotiable. Nothing untrue is ever spoken, but truth alone is not enough. It must also be beneficial. You can know something true about someone and still have no business saying it, because saying it would serve no purpose. And then there is timing. Even when speech is true and beneficial, the Buddha adds, with a sense of right timing. Not every true and helpful thing should be said right now. Sometimes the most compassionate act is to wait. The sutta offers a vivid image. If a baby had a dangerous object, a stick, a stone, caught in its throat, would you reach in and pull it out, even if it caused pain and drew blood? Of course you would. Not because you want to cause pain, because the child's safety demands it. The Buddha sometimes speaks truths that are unpleasant but necessary, and he does so with the same motivation. Compassion, not cruelty, determines timing. Now, here is where this becomes yours. Think about the last difficult conversation you had, maybe with a family member over politics, maybe with an adult child about a choice they are making, maybe with a friend who is grieving, and you wanted to say something helpful but were not sure if it would land. Before you speak, the Buddha offers 3 questions. Is it true? Is it beneficial? Is this the right moment? If all 3, speak, even if it is hard, even if the other person does not want to hear it. If it is true but not beneficial, the Buddha gave you permission to remain silent. And silence, in that moment, is not cowardice. Silence is right speech. If it is not the right moment, true, beneficial, but the timing is wrong, wait, timing is compassion in action. And if any part of it is untrue, even if it would make someone feel better, even if it would smooth things over, do not say it. The Buddha never considered untruth an option, not even a beneficial one. 3 questions. You can carry them in your pocket for the rest of your life. And every conversation you enter, with your partner, your children, your doctor, your neighbor, becomes an opportunity to practice the path. Not in a monastery, not on a cushion, at the dinner table. Right action, sammakamanta. Right speech governs what comes out of your mouth. Right action governs what your body does. The Mahācattārīsaka Sutta, SN 45-8, defines it as abstaining from taking life, from stealing, and from sexual misconduct. 3 restraints. And at first glance, they seem simple. Do not kill. Do not steal. Do not harm through sexuality. Most people hearing this would say, I already do that. What is there to learn? But the Buddha reframed restraint in a way that changes what it means entirely. In the Abhisanda Sutta, AN 839, the Buddha describes the 5 precepts, which include these 3, as 5 great gifts. Not rules, not restrictions, gifts. Each time you refrain from taking life, you give freedom from danger to every being you encounter. Each time you refrain from stealing, you give freedom from loss. Each time you refrain from sexual misconduct, you give freedom from betrayal. You are not merely holding yourself back. You are actively giving something, safety, trust, peace, to every person whose life intersects with yours. The text says these gifts are original, long-standing, traditional, ancient, not invented by the Buddha, but recognized by him as fundamental to human coexistence. And the person who gives these gifts gains a share in what they give. Freedom from danger, freedom from animosity, freedom from oppression. This is not small. This reframe, from restraint to generosity, changes the entire feeling of ethical conduct. You are not walking around with a list of things you cannot do. You are walking around giving gifts that no one can see, but everyone can feel. Every room you enter and do not fill with harm, that is a gift. Every interaction where you could have taken something, attention, credit, trust, and did not, that is a gift. Right action is not the absence of wrong. It is the presence of safety you create by choosing again and again not to take. Right livelihood, samma ajiva. Right livelihood is the factor most people think they understand, and the one that, for this audience, may matter most. The Vanija Sutta, AN 5, 177, gives the Buddha's only direct specification of wrong livelihood for laypeople. Trade in weapons, trade in living beings, trade in meat, trade in intoxicants, trade in poison. 5 trades. The principle underneath them is clear. Does the way you sustain your life cause harm to others? For most of your life, this question had an obvious application. Your job, your career, the work you did for 40 years to pay the mortgage, raise the children, build the retirement fund. Right livelihood meant, is my work ethical? Am I causing harm through how I earn a living? But here's the question the Buddha's teaching raises for anyone over 55, and it is a question almost no one asks directly. What happens to right livelihood when the career ends? Notice something. The Buddha did not say right occupation. He did not say right career. He said right livelihood, sama ajiva, how you sustain your life, how your living contributes to the world. That is a much larger question than what company pays your salary. You spent 40 years answering the question, what do you do? At parties, at reunions, at doctor's offices. And for 40 years, the answer was your job title. Engineer, teacher, manager, attorney. The title was the identity. The career was the livelihood. And then one day, the career ends. Retirement, downsizing, health, whatever the reason. And suddenly the question, what do you do, has no easy answer. And for many people, that silence is not peaceful. It is terrifying. Because if you are not your job, who are you? The Buddha would say, you are asking the wrong question. The question was never, what do you do? The Buddhist question is, what does your living give to the world? And that question does not retire. The grandfather who shows up every Tuesday to help his neighbor, that is livelihood. The woman who volunteers at the library, not because she has to, but because she believes access to books matters, that is livelihood. The man who spends his mornings in the garden, growing tomatoes he gives to everyone on the street, that is livelihood. Not because these activities earn money, because they sustain life, his and others, in a way that causes no harm and generates genuine good. Right livelihood after retirement may be the most honest version of right livelihood you have ever practiced. Because for the first time, the question is pure. No salary attached, no title at stake, no performance review. Just, how does the way you spend your days give to the world? When the career falls away, what remains of how you sustain yourself and contribute to others? That is the real test. And it may be the first time you take it without a cheat sheet. Ethics, right speech, right action, right livelihood, is the division where the path becomes visible to other people. Wisdom lives in the mind. Ethics lives in the world. And the Buddha was clear. You cannot meditate your way past how you treat people. You cannot concentrate your way past a lie. The mind that sits in meditation is the same mind that spoke at dinner. If the speech was careless, the meditation carries that weight. But ethics prepares the ground, and the path goes deeper still. Because there is a division where all the factors, wisdom, ethics, and something else, converge. Where the path folds back on itself and the run and circle around formula we opened with finally reveals its full meaning. That is where we go next. Division 3, Meditation. We have moved through wisdom, how you see, through ethics, how you live. Now we arrive at the division most people think of when they hear the word Buddhism, meditation. But this division is not what you expect. It is not about sitting still. It is not about emptying the mind. It is not about relaxation, though relaxation may come. The three factors here, right effort, right mindfulness, right concentration, are the engine room of the entire path. This is where everything you have built in wisdom and ethics converges into a single, sustained act of attention. And this is where the run and circle around formula we opened with will finally show you what it means. Right effort. Sama vayama. Right effort sounds redundant. You are already trying. You are already making effort to be a better person, to understand the teachings, to practice what you have learned. What more is there to say? The Buddha would say, it depends on what kind of effort, aimed at what, with how much force. The Mahācattārīsaka Sutta, SN 45:8, defines right effort as 4 great efforts, not 1, 4, and they operate simultaneously. First, prevent unwholesome qualities that have not yet arisen from arising. Second, abandon unwholesome qualities that have already arisen. Third, arouse wholesome qualities that have not yet arisen. Fourth, maintain and develop wholesome qualities that have already arisen. 2 efforts deal with the unwholesome, one preventive, one corrective. 2 efforts deal with the wholesome, one generative, one sustaining. The mind is not just pushing away what is bad, it is actively cultivating what is good. Right effort is a gardener's work, pulling weeds and planting seeds at the same time. But here is where most people go wrong. They try too hard. In the Sona Sutta, AN 655, the Buddha addresses a monk named Sona who has been practicing so intensely that his feet are bleeding. Sona is ready to give up, not because he is lazy, but because maximum effort has produced no results. He is exhausted, discouraged, and considering abandoning the path entirely. The Buddha does not tell him to try harder. He does not tell him to relax. He asks him a question. Sona, before you became a monk, you were a musician, a vana player. Tell me, when the strings of your vana were too taut, was it in tune? No, Lord. And when the strings were too loose? No, Lord. But when the strings were neither too taut nor too loose, tuned to be right on pitch, was your vina in tune and playable? Yes, Lord. In the same way, Sona, over-aroused persistence leads to restlessness. Overly slack persistence leads to laziness. Determine the right pitch for your persistence. A musician's answer to a spiritual crisis. Not try harder, not let go, find the pitch, tune the string, and then play. Thanissaro adds a layer that makes this practical. Think of tuning the first string as tuning the level of your energy. Then tune the rest of your strings to that. Once the effort is calibrated, once the pitch is right, the practice does not feel like strain. In Sanskrit, the word has been translated as joyful effort. Not because the work is easy, because when effort is properly tuned, it carries its own momentum. The string vibrates freely. And there is another image the tradition offers, less elegant, more blunt. There is a right way and a wrong way to get milk from a cow. If you try twisting the cow's horn, you get nothing. It does not mean you are not twisting hard enough. It means you are doing the wrong thing. Right effort is not about intensity. It is about direction. Bleeding feet are not a sign of devotion. They are a sign that the string is too tight. Right mindfulness, samasati. This is the factor that has conquered the modern world and been most changed in the conquest. Mindfulness is everywhere. Apps, therapy offices, corporate retreats, school curricula. Pay attention to the present moment without judgment. That is what mindfulness means. Everyone knows this, except that is not what the Buddha taught. Thanissaro Bhikkhu, in his book Right Mindfulness, makes a distinction that matters enormously. Modern mindfulness is primarily a function of attention, open, receptive, non-judgmental awareness of whatever is happening right now. Samasati, the the Buddha's right mindfulness, is primarily a function of memory. Not memory as in recalling the past. Memory as in keeping in mind what needs to be done. Remembering what is skillful and what is not. Remembering your intention. Remembering the purpose of the practice while you are in the middle of it. The difference is not subtle. Modern mindfulness says, observe without agenda. Samasati says, observe with a very clear agenda. The abandonment of what is unskillful, the development of what is skillful. It is not passive watching. It is active supervision. Right mindfulness keeps the other path factors on track. It remembers right view when the mind starts drifting into wrong view. It remembers right effort when energy is too tight or too slack. It remembers right speech even in the middle of a heated conversation. Thanissaro puts it directly, no act of attention is ever truly bare. The way you attend to experience is shaped by your views about what matters, the questions you bring, the problems you want to solve. Claiming attention has no agenda does not remove the agenda. It just makes the agenda invisible. The Buddha's approach is the opposite. Make the agenda explicit. You are watching the mind to develop skillful qualities and abandon unskillful ones. You are paying attention to the body, to feelings, to mental states, to mental qualities. The four foundations of mindfulness described in the Satipatthana Sutta, MN 10, not as a detached observer, but as someone with work to do. The mindfulness that fills app stores is not wrong, but it is not the full picture. The difference is whether you are watching the path or walking it. And here, if you have been with us since we explored the Satipatthana, you will recognize this territory. The four foundations are the field where right mindfulness operates. But now you see them in context, not as a standalone practice, but as one factor within a living system of 8, supported by wisdom and ethics, aimed at concentration. Right concentration, Samma Samadhi. Everything has been building toward this. Right view set the direction. Right resolve chose what to aim at. Right speech, right action, right livelihood brought the path into the world. Right effort tuned the energy. Right mindfulness kept everything in mind. And now, right concentration is where all of it converges. The Maghavibhanga Sutta, SN 45-8, defines right concentration as the 4 jhanas, the 4 levels of meditative absorption. This is not negotiable. The standard definition of the Noble Eightfold Path equates right concentration with the jhanas, not relaxation, not calm abiding in a general sense, the jhanas specifically. The first jhana, rapture and pleasure, born of seclusion, accompanied by directed thought and evaluation, secluded from sensuality and unskillful qualities. The second jhana, rapture and pleasure born of concentration itself, free from directed thought, a deep internal assurance. The third jhana, equanimous, mindful, alert, sensing pleasure with the body. The fourth jhana, purity of equanimity and mindfulness, neither pleasure nor pain. Each jhana is deeper, stiller, more refined than the last. And together they represent a mind so gathered, so unified, so free from disturbance, that it can finally see without distortion. But here's the detail that transforms everything. Thanissaro points to a footnote in the Okantika Samyutta, SN 4522, that most readers skip. The unskillful qualities that you are secluded from in the first jhana, what are they? They are not just random mental noise. They are specifically wrong view, wrong resolve, wrong speech, wrong action, wrong livelihood, wrong effort, wrong mindfulness, and wrong concentration. All 8 wrong path factors. To enter the first jhana is to be secluded from the wrong version of every single factor of the path, simultaneously, which means right concentration is not just the 8th item on a list. It is the arena where the entire path operates at once. Every factor you have developed, the clarity of view, the orientation of resolve, the discipline of speech, the care of action, the honesty of livelihood, the calibration of effort, the vigilance of mindfulness, all of it converges here. Right concentration is both the heart of the path and the place where the path completes itself. And now, the formula. Remember the opening? The Buddha said that for every path factor, 3 qualities run and circle around it. Right view, right effort, right mindfulness. This was the Mahācattārīsaka Sutta, MN 117. I introduced it in the first 6 minutes and left it open. Here is what it means. The path is not 8 separate practices you do one at a time. It is one practice with 8 dimensions that operate together. When you practice right speech, right view is discerning what to say. Right effort is generating the energy to say it skillfully. Right mindfulness is keeping the intention alive. 3 factors circling around a 4th. And this pattern holds for every factor, including concentration itself. Thanissaro calls this the holographic quality of the path. Every part contains the whole. Like a child learning to walk, she already has every muscle she needs. But she must locate them, exercise them, coordinate them so that the right leg and the left leg help each other, from the first tentative step to the point where walking becomes natural and can be done with grace. All the factors start out weak, but they support one another until they all reach enough strength to lead to awakening. And at the noble level, when the path is fully developed, something remarkable happens. The Mahācattārīsaka Sutta, MN 117, describes it. All 8 factors coalesce in the mind in a state of solid oneness. What was separate becomes unified. What was practiced in sequence converges in a single moment. Thanissaro puts it this way. That is what the definition of stream entry is. The noble eightfold path coming together, yielding the deathless. Not 8 steps completed, 8 factors unified. That is not a staircase. That is a living system, becoming whole. Landing. 8 factors, 3 divisions, 1 path that is not a staircase. But there is one more teaching the Buddha offered that brings everything we have covered into focus, and it has to do with the world you walk back into every time you stand up from the cushion, every time you turn off this video, every time you step outside. In the Lokavapati Sutta, AN 86, the Buddha names 8 forces that spin the world. He calls them the worldly winds, and they come in pairs: gain and loss, status and disgrace, praise and blame, pleasure and pain. 8 conditions, 4 pairs. And the Buddha says something striking about them. These 8 worldly conditions spin after the world, and the world spins after these 8 worldly conditions. You know these winds. You have felt every one of them. The promotion that made you feel invincible, and the layoff that made you feel worthless. The compliment that lifted your entire week, and the criticism that ruined your sleep. The money that arrived and felt like safety, and the money that left and felt like falling. Gain and loss, status and disgrace, praise and blame, pleasure and pain. They never stop blowing, and the untrained mind, the Buddha's word, is consumed by them. It welcomes what is pleasant and rebels against what is unpleasant. It clings to gain and recoils from loss. It chases praise and hides from blame. And in that chasing and hiding, it is never free, never still, never at rest. The noble disciple, the person who has developed this path, meets the same 8 winds. The same gains come, the same losses arrive. Praise lands, blame lands. Nothing changes in the external conditions. Everything changes in the response. The noble disciple reflects, this is inconstant, this is impermanent, this is subject to change. And in that reflection, desirable things do not charm the mind. Undesirable things bring no resistance. The welcoming and rebelling are scattered, gone to their end. 8 forces of disturbance, 8 factors of stability. The world pulls in 8 directions, and the noble eightfold path is the answer to each one. Right view sees gain and loss for what they are, impermanent. Right resolve does not chase status or flee disgrace. Right speech does not bend toward praise or away from blame. Right action holds steady regardless of pleasure or pain. Right livelihood does not sell itself for gain. Right effort stays calibrated, not elated by success, not crushed by failure. Right mindfulness remembers what is happening while it is happening. Right concentration holds the center when everything spins. 8 winds, 8 factors, not a coincidence, a design, and now, a question you may have been carrying since the beginning. If this path requires jhana, requires right view at the transcendent level, requires all 8 factors coalescing into oneness, where does that leave you? Where does that leave someone who has not attained stream entry, who has not experienced the jhanas, who is simply trying to live a decent life with some awareness and some kindness? The canon answers this clearly, and the answer is, you are on the path, not metaphorically, not as a consolation. The mundane path, the path of someone who holds right view as a working hypothesis, who practices right speech at the dinner table, who tends to right livelihood after retirement, who calibrates right effort like a musician tuning a string. That path is real. It is the necessary ground from which the noble path grows. You must nurture the mundane levels of the 8 factors before they can develop into their noble counterparts. The gradual training the canon describes, DN2, MN27, is a spectrum, hearing the teaching, practicing ethics, developing sense restraint, overcoming hindrances, entering concentration, cultivating insight. A person at any point on that spectrum is on the path in a meaningful, genuine sense. If you have ever paused before speaking to ask whether what you were about to say was true and beneficial and well-timed, you have walked on this path. If you have ever caught yourself about to act from anger and chosen not to, you have walked on this path. If you have ever sat quietly and noticed, even for a moment, that the mind was doing something you did not ask it to do, you have walked on this path. If you have ever looked at a loss, a job, a relationship, a season of life, and found somewhere beneath the grief a strange and unexpected freedom, you have walked on this path. You have been walking it. You just did not know the name of where you were. The Buddha called it the Noble Eightfold Path. Noble, Arya, not because it is reserved for the already enlightened, because walking it is what makes someone noble, and because those who have walked it fully, who have crossed and kept walking, this is their path. You are following in their footsteps, not a staircase, not a checklist, not 8 boxes to tick before you earn your freedom. A living system where every part strengthens every other part, where wisdom informs ethics and ethics steadies meditation, and meditation deepens wisdom. where three qualities run and circle around every factor, holding the whole thing together from the inside. Where the path progressively is the liberation it leads to, each factor as it develops, reducing suffering and increasing freedom right now, even as it points towards something beyond what words can hold. You are not waiting for the destination. You are already experiencing what the destination is made of.